All right, we got Bo on the line. Life requires information, therefore an author. Okay, are you with us, Bo?
I'm here. Good to talk to you again, Brian.
Hey, good to talk to you. So yeah, we've talked before about was it about the same topic?
It was not. It was about origins. I had kind of gone into the first and second law of thermodynamics, talking about the origin of the universe.
Okay. Yeah.
And
what do we got?
So today I just wanted to kind of stay on the same premise as far as origins, and speaking more generally to the topic of the origin of life. And I kind of wanted to get your thoughts for how the coded scheme of biological information can be explained through strictly material processes, like where you're going to take an amino acid and assign a symbolic representation to it. But what I'm asking is, how would strictly material processes explain how to originate the scheme for a protein sequence onto a DNA molecule? So you encode a protein onto DNA as a set of instructions for how to build that protein. Do you guys have any thoughts on how that could happen naturally?
Does it have to be explained? What does it mean if we can't explain it naturally?
Well, I don't think there's a natural explanation for it. I think it's impossible.
Why do you think it's impossible?
I mean,
how would you demonstrate impossibility?
Well, I think by pointing out the absurdity of it, like saying it's like trying to figure out how to give self-awareness to a computer. I mean, it's absurd to even think where to start, how you would engineer consciousness. Consciousness isn't physical.
What do you mean engineer a consciousness?
It's absurd to think that atoms and energy could come up with an information scheme necessary for life.
So engineering consciousness, that's an interesting concept. What do you I'm assuming that you think that, or that you believe that consciousness is something that exists separate from biological organism, like a dualist.
I wasn't trying to take the topic to consciousness. I was just trying to use that as an example of something that I don't even think we could even start to come up with a rough proposal how we would do that. And I'm just applying that to how energy and atoms and molecules couldn't possibly come up with a logic scheme.
So sorry to repeat myself, but even if we can't come up with that, what does that mean? The thing I'm not getting here is you're saying that this is not possible. We can't do this. We can't explain this. And Brian's probably a better person to explain this than I can, if any of us can. But even if we can't, what does that mean? It seems like you want to bump onto something else from that.
Well, yeah. I'm just saying that life is information based, and I mean, if natural processes can't explain it, and say the Christian position has a positive answer for that, an intelligent.
What positive answer does the Christian position have? Brian?
Oh, sorry. Is a having an answer or not having an answer, or having a right answer or having a wrong answer more important to you?
Having a right answer.
That's the most important thing to me too. So people can propose solutions for all kinds of things. They can tell you that the lightning is Zeus up in the clouds throwing it down, but until they can demonstrate it with some kind, and that's a good analogy too, because there was a time where we didn't know about these natural forces and we did attribute them to supernatural causes, and then we learned later that they weren't. So based on explanation, there's Bandaid. Based on the explanations that we have so far, through inductive reasoning, we can the best conclusion would be that whether we know the mechanisms or not, that this was caused by natural forces, because that's always been the answer that we've come up with before.
Yeah, and one thing I try to stay consistent about is what we know currently, based on what we know, currently, what the current logic is. And I mean, if we had, if I wrote down 3 letters on a piece of paper, would we say that the pattern is based on, say, the laws of chemistry or the laws of physics, or the intent of the author, whoever wrote those letters down?
Okay, so chemistry is based on the laws of physics. So it all comes down to physics, the reasons that different chemicals react the way that they do together. So yeah, physics would be
the letters on the paper. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go on. Maybe I misunderstood your analogy.
Well, I'm just saying, if I were to write the letters BAG down on a piece of paper, is that pattern based on a physical law, or is the pattern based on my intent as an author?
Oh, that would be, yeah, your intent, because you would have thought to write down BAG. Yeah. So that'd be intentional.
Right.
That'd be.
But we know people write things down.
That's kind of
This is the whole, going back to the whole thinking. We know people write things down. We know people can create patterns. What we don't know is beyond the beginning how life exactly formed. We don't know that. So how are we getting from that to a being that's created something? How are we jumping from we don't know to this being has created things? We know people create things all the time.
So, and to piggyback off that a little bit, we see written languages, and we know we've devised written languages. What the difference between that and codons is that we interpret the language in codons. We interpret that, and we assign letters to that. Whereas with our alphabets and stuff, we've created that. So we've prescribed those letters values. Whereas when it comes to DNA, we described those values. It's a kind of a category difference.
Well, yeah, our language is based on letters being arbitrarily assigned something. It's based on intent. It's not based on physical laws. Kind of like the ASCII code of a computer, right? The computer doesn't see an A. The program sees a 65, and our genetic code is kind of identical in concept to the ASCII code. It's symbolic. It's the arrangement of the logic that kind of drives the instructions. And if the laws of physics and the laws of chemistry have no symbolic logic function, I think that overwhelmingly points to the intent of an author. So and I'm just curious as to what if
other
that is a code, if it's a logic scheme.
So there's other than our biological systems, which we can look at the DNA and you can see the coding of the DNA. And again, like I said, there may be a fundamental disagreement there on whether that's a prescriptive or descriptive code. But other aspects of the reality that we live in, are we seeing codes everywhere, or just in biology? And if it's just in biology, why does biology require a code but the rest of the mechanics of the universe don't?
I don't know that the rest of the mechanics of the universe don't, but I mean, in biology, I think we definitely see it. I mean, is there a naturalist explanation for how you would originate the scheme for a protein sequence onto a DNA molecule? I mean, I wouldn't have that information here, and off the top of my head, that's not something I would know. I do like science, but yeah, I don't know all the intricacies of molecular cell biology or DNA coding or anything like that. But it is something I'd be willing to look into if you were going to call back and talk about it. If you wanted to send me some papers on that or whatever, I can definitely look into it, but I don't have the resources right here, right now to delve into DNA coding and stuff, unfortunately. But if you want to talk more general concepts, we can keep going, but that's up to you. Yeah, I don't. don't want to misrepresent myself either. I'm definitely not a molecular biologist or anything like that. I am just trying to keep it at the general level. And
so I
that
appreciate
is
that
if
you're going down this scientific route and trying to understand the science, and that, you know, that's really good. I'm really glad you're doing that. What I'm interested in, and Brian's just piqued my mind here by mentioning the scientific papers. Are there any scientific papers that point to God done it? Are there any scientific papers that you can bring up that have been published in a reputable journal, that have been peer reviewed, that can actually go in and say this does point to an author?
I mean, I don't have one specifically, but I'm sure I could find dozens of papers on the information law that I think, is there one that comes out and says, because biological life requires this logic scheme that there's God in a peer-reviewed paper? I probably doubt it.
So why are you forming this conclusion then? Because it seems that on one hand you're saying, can it be explained by nature? Can the science we currently have that deals with this sort of stuff, can that explain it and put it down as a naturalistic thing? But on the other hand, you're saying, but I don't think there's anything there that actually points to this alternative, which I'm proposing. So I'm interested in this kind of discrepancy that you seem to be having here.
Well, my big point is that information is not physical. And so with an understanding of physics and of information, that affirmatively demonstrates that the laws of physics and the laws of chemistry don't contain the symbolic logic. I mean,
so
logically, doesn't that point to an intelligent actor?
Quick question about information, because I want to kind of define our terms here. How do we as humans gather information? I mean, if you had to infer that.
Well, I'd say lots of ways. I mean, I can go back to my example of me writing, BAG. I mean, you can't necessarily look at it.
Okay, but it's through our senses, right? It's through our senses that we experience the world, and that information is imported, right? That's where the information that's in our brain, all of it came through one of our senses at some point. Well, I shouldn't say all of it. There are some things that are innate to each individual organism, certain behavioral genetic things that are passed on to them. But other than that, all the information that we receive comes in through our senses. So if you ask where the information comes from, I'm going to say senses, because all information that I know is always interpreted through our senses, through human senses or animal senses.
Which one of your senses tells you that, though? Which one of your senses tells you that everything we can know about information comes through your senses, your five senses?
Well, which information didn't come from my senses? I'm being deductive here, I guess.
But that specific assertion that you made, you asserted that we can only know that the only information we can get through is through our five senses. Which one of your five senses led you to that conclusion? I guess is what I'm asking.
Oh, I guess that it would be a combination of all my senses, because it would be my worldly experience that I've had with those senses.
Okay, but I mean, would you say it's your sense of sight that led you to conclude that you can only know?
Yeah, because my sense of sight would have let me read information about the nature of the world, so that sight would have imported that information. And I think my sight was probably one of the prominent ones, because I also used it to observe like animal life and see how evolution took place, to look at the geology and see how the Earth was looks like it was formed, and how it changed over time. I've used my sight to infer so much data about the world. So yeah, my sight would definitely be a one, but I also like listening to audiobooks. So I've listened to so much David Attenborough that it'd probably make you sick. So that's definitely imported into my brain through my audible senses. Other things, of course, you learn real early on not to touch hot things, but yeah, that's stored somewhere in here too, is that don't put your hand on that and you'll burn yourself. So all my senses have contributed to.
That's your logic and your reason. it's not your hearing and it's not your sight. It's your logic. It's your reason.
Well, that's me.
other
That's
things
how I
are
interpret it.
physical.
Once the information's inside, that's how I interpret it, is with the logic, which is a function of my brain.
Right, which isn't physical though. The logic and the laws of logic aren't physical.
No, yeah, it's a emergent property of the electrical and chemical activity going on up in there.
Right. Okay. So yeah, I mean, I guess what I called for was just to see if you guys had any thoughts. If you guys could offer up a material explanation for, if life is information based and based on a logic scheme. Do you have any proposals for how that would come about through natural processes?
I have no idea, and I don't think that we really need to. I think as the onus seems to be getting a balance of propositions, and if you're going to propose something, I think we need to evidence it. At the minute, it seems that we're going down this route of you're saying, well, you haven't got an answer, therefore God. That's how it's coming through, but you're not really offering anything for God other than you don't have an answer.
Well, I'm not offering an explanation from incredulity. I'm saying it's a positive answer. I'm saying that it has to be an intelligent being based on
why
everything we
though?
know
You've
about
not demonstrated
information.
why it has to be intelligent.
Well, I mean,
your demonstration of what it needs to be intelligent seems to be you don't have an answer.
And recognize that takes an intelligent actor.
Are you a programmer or work in programming?
No, sir.
Okay. I was just wondering because of the language you're using is computer programming language, so I was interested.
I just found this as a fascinating evidence for a creator, and I've kind of really delved into it for probably the last 3 or 4 years. Probably about the first time I heard about it, but I think it's a really strong evidence for a creator based on what we know about information. I mean, we know that a computer logic scheme requires intelligence. Therefore, I think we can apply that to the biological life scheme.
As an analogy, though, right? As an analogy, they're not homogeneous. What's what I'm looking for? Homologous. They're analogous. They're similar but different, right? So to assume that because they're similar, that they have the same source could lead you astray to make that leap. Don't you think?
I don't know. I think our genetic code's pretty identical to, say, a computer code. So if a computer code needs an intelligence.
Okay. I mean, I think I fundamentally disagree on that. Unfortunately, we're kind of running low on time. I do invite you to call back, though. I enjoyed this conversation. I think as we talked more, it came back to me how we talked before. So, keep calling back because these are good topics, good things to talk about. And I think that the people at home are enjoying learning about these things and waxing over these ideas. Richard, do you have any closing statements for our friend here?
No, I'm glad you called it. The more we get to talk about these things, the more we can investigate them together, and that's what I'm all about. I want to go into things and investigate them together. I'm not about animosity or anything like that. So, yeah, thank you for calling in. Do appreciate it.
Right.
No,
looks.
And I appreciate you guys having me on. Thank you.
Yeah, you have a good one.